Today on Eye on Northwest Politics, Portland's fight to end the homeless crisis and curb gun violence in the city amid a Portland police officer shortage.
Our city police bureau is critically understaffed.
So this budget did not hire 300 more police officers.
I talk with Portland City Commissioner Ann Hardesty, who has voted to cut police bureau budgets in the past, on what's being done to make Portland safe again, plus a deep divide in Newburgh public schools.
I oppose this motion.
In the weeks following the school board's firing of Superintendent Joe Morlock without cause along party lines, parts of the Newburgh community responded outraged.
This school district, under the current 4-member majority, is absolutely going in the wrong direction.
We talk with a black mother and former school board candidate with a child in the Newburgh School District, and the recall efforts underway for the chair and the vice chair of the school board. And our commentary guest this week, former Chief Deputy Multnomah County District Attorney Norm Frink. The former prosecutor dives into Oregon Governor Kate Brown's criminal justice policies.
Oregonians of all parties need to say enough is enough.
Eye on Northwest Politics starts now. Thanks for joining us. This is Eye on Northwest Politics. I'm Ken Boddie. This week we start at Portland City Hall as the city tries to deal with a number of big issues, from an alarming rise in shootings, homicides, and property crime to questions about funding police and police accountability, a homeless situation that's out of control, and a mayor who appears to be searching for answers. My first guest, the first black woman on Portland City Council, the first city council member that we know of who is actually suing the city, and our first guest on Eye on Northwest Politics, Commissioner Ann Hardesty. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here, Ken. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You and I have been in this city a long time, done
Yes,
a lot
we
of
have.
things, seen a lot of things. Did you ever anticipate that our city would be in the shape that it's in now? How did we get here, and how do we get out of it?
A great question, Ken. And let me remind your audience that in March of 2020, everything shut down in the city of Portland. As per the governor's mandate around the international COVID crisis that we were facing, which means that a lot of people who had been living on the edge in our community, working 2 and 3 $15 an hour job, lost everything in March of 2020. We are now just starting to re-emerge from the lockdown that COVID caused, which means that there were many people who were economically devastated by COVID. Now, a small group of corporations made a small fortune during COVID, but for most working people, COVID had an economically devastating impact. And that is what we're seeing on our street. We're seeing the humanitarian crisis created by a lack of safety nets, by a lack of housing people can afford to live in, by a lack of access to mental health treatment when people need it. That is what we're seeing on our streets every day. And when I walk out my door, I am absolutely devastated by the suffering that I see on our streets.
How do we get out of this?
We get out of it. Let me just say that one of the things that COVID taught us was that the inequities that were built into every system we have were exacerbated by COVID. So how do we get out of it? We get out of it by taking a humane approach to the suffering on our streets. I think the challenge is that we want quick fixes to a situation that wasn't created quickly. It took decades. It was decades in the making for us to have the kind of economic devastation we have today. So it will take us collectively as a community coming together and saying, how can I help?
You know, City Council just voted on how to spend $62 million in unexpected one-time revenue, $18 million for homeless services, about $7 million to public safety, including hiring more police officers. This is what Mayor Wheeler had to say at the beginning of this process, this whole budget process.
And I'm just going to say this flat out. Our city police bureau is critically understaffed. Chief Lavelle believes we need 300 officers over the next 3 years to bring us back to where we need to be in terms of community policing and police deployment. I will be asking my colleagues on the City Council to support that strategy.
Well, last year, you actually voted to cut the police budget by $18 million. So did you change your position on adding police by voting for this supplemental budget?
So this budget did not hire 300 more police officers. This budget authorized retire, rehire, 25 this year, 25 next year. It also is going to allow us to buy body cams, which the Department of Justice wants us to have. And because the technology has changed significantly since we started this conversation back in 2012, I also now support body cams. The reality is we don't have a staffing problem, we have a hiring problem. No one wants to be a Portland police officer today. And rather than answering the question, why is the workplace so dysfunctional that regardless of what we do, we cannot actually hire people who want to be Portland police officers?
Is it your position that we do need more police on the street, though?
Not at this point, no. We have 800 officers, and as of today, only 400 of them do patrol. I want to know what the other 400 do all day, every day. I want to know what happened on August 22nd, I believe, when the Proud Boys came to town, and we had an all hands on deck at Portland Police Bureau, paid $150,000 in overtime. Yet my community in East Portland was terrorized by white supremacists, and the police told them to stand down and not respond. I mean, how crazy is that?
One of the things that the mayor wanted to do was get into this retire, rehire program. In other words, there were police officers who have relatively recently left the force. He wanted to try to get them to come back in order to beef up the ranks. What did you think about that?
Well, I thought it was a really bad idea since we have 6,000 use of force, recorded use of force issues from last year. But as you know, in politics, you have to be able to negotiate. So I was able to negotiate with the mayor and change his proposal to put some parameters around it. So anyone who retired in lieu of being investigated because of their activities last summer would not be invited back. Anyone who trained police in unconstitutional practices would not be invited back. Anyone who was investigated for use of force last summer would not be invited back. So even though the Police Bureau has authority to hire 25 retire rehirees this year, and then another 25 next year, based on our vote last week, I don't suspect they're going to have a lot of people that would fit the parameters that I've put in place.
You announced a tort claim recently intending to sue the city for an incident involving Portland police. You were accused of being the driver in a hit and run. You were immediately cleared, and former Portland Police Association President Brian Hunsaker resigned after the police report was leaked. The original police report was leaked to the media. Are you still going to pursue that lawsuit? And if so, why?
Well, let me just say that I am still waiting for the outcome of the investigation into the wrongful allegations that I was involved in a hit and run. As of yet, I don't know what's going to happen to anyone who was involved in that effort. It may be true that I'm the first elected official to sue the city that they are elected to serve. I will also say I'm probably the first elected official who's been set up by the Police Bureau to discredit their political career.
You know, the Charter Commission now examining Portland's commission form of government. Your fellow commissioner, Mingus Mapps, describes it as 5 mayors, each controlling their own fiefdom. It's a system that most cities abandoned decades ago. So what's your position on whether Portland's system of government needs to change?
Let me just say that the city council, I was intent when I got here in 2019 that we have a very diverse charter review commission and that they be fully funded to do the work they need to do. I am a strong believer that elected officials should keep their mouth shut and stay out of the charter review commission's work. Our job is not to advocate one way or another. It's for us to support the independence of the Charter Review Commission and have them talk to community members all over the city of Portland before they put something on the ballot. I have every confidence that they will put a very well thought out proposal on the ballot, and then voters will have an opportunity to decide whether or not it's a good one or a bad one.
Talk to people in other cities, and they are surprised that we still use a system where we have city commissioners who are in charge of bureaus rather than a city manager to handle the nuts and bolts of all of those things.
Well, let me just ask you this, Ken.
Yeah.
Name one American city that has a city manager, a strong form of mayor government that has equitable outcomes.
Well,
And I'll wait.
yeah, you can continue to wait because I can't answer that question.
And no one can. And that's
Yeah.
my point. We should not assume that just because every other city in the nation has a system that still has inequitable outcomes, that we should rush to put that system in place. I have confidence that the Charter Review Commission won't stop at what other governments are doing. But if they believe that regular people should have a voice in their government, that regular people should have the opportunity to serve, to get elected and serve in public office, I believe the Charter Commission will put the best proposal they can on the ballot. I just don't want them to be limited by what everybody else does.
Portland City Commissioner, and I just want to mention this Navy veteran, Ann Hardesty. Thanks for joining me on Eye on Northwest Politics.
My pleasure, and best of luck with the show. I look forward to watching.
Thank you.